This is gonna be one of those filming sessions where there's a fly in here and I'm just gonna have to pretend it's not happening. Superhero offspring. It's always interesting to see different takes on the next generation. This can of course be in canon or outside of it. There are many options and directions you can go. And the more well-known the hero, the bigger the spotlight. So it's no surprise that when it comes to DC's Trinity, that being Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, there's extra interest whenever a child enters the mix. Now there's some debate in some circles as to whether that actually is the Trinity or whether it should be, but in the minds of the general public, when they think DC Trinity, that is who they think of. And that is who DC tries to push in that arena. Now today's entry in the superhero offspring lexicon is a recent addition as of 2023, time of recording. And this one is Wonder Woman's daughter. Father TBD, or rather to be disclosed. And her handle is Trinity, although that is only sort of a reference to the DC legacy. And it's not a religious allegory. Part of it is because she's got 3 lassos, gold, silver, and black. Guess they didn't want a bronze lasso. She enters the scene at the dawn of a new era for DC. The dawn of DC. She's not Wonder Woman's first child or daughter, either canonically or in Elseworlds, though past canonical entries have been erased or retconned into something different. Trinity is coming into being at a time of change for Wonder Woman in DC Comics. 2023 saw the beginning of the dawn of DC, a period of relaunching many DC titles, introducing some new characters, and setting up some new directions and status quos. Time of recording, Wonder Woman has hit issue 800, quite the feat. And after that, it's subsequently being relaunched with a new creative team and a new #1. This said they can do a bunch of variants, boost sales, and they're still gonna keep the legacy numbering in a little corner. I prefer the legacy numbering because it just feels cool to be part of something so ongoing, but that's just me. Some people like the smaller, more manageable numbers. At the start of Dawn of DC, Wonder Woman is set to be handled by Tom King and Daniel Sampere on art. Issue 800 had Trinity debut, and also give the reader a little taste, a little sampling what to expect with Tom King on the title, how he's gonna be writing some of these characters. It's off to an interesting start. Trinity is playing in some, at this time of recording, very well-worn tropes and in some people's minds worn out. 3 trials: pain, skill, honor. Who wants to go in what order? It doesn't matter to me, but if you can't decide, I'm happy to do it for you. You both know what? You boys are way too slow in a few ways. Let's just say Superman pain, Batman skill, me honor. Cool? All aboard the trying to make abrasiveness endearing train. We have many stops. It's gonna be a long ride. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and let's meet Trinity in her first appearance. When it comes to Wonder Woman sidekicks, you already have a few to choose from. Some very recently introduced, such as Yara Flor, colloquially known as Brazilian Wonder Woman. She debuted in 2021, and at one point was being set up as the next member of the future Trinity, beside John Kent's Superman. At the time it was a toss-up who was going to be the Batman. Jace, don't call me Tim Fox. Damian, Tim, I don't want the mantle, but now I suddenly do, Drake. Not to mention you also had the more classic Wonder Girls still floating around, like Cassie Sandsmark or Donna Troy. So why introduce a new character? While the pragmatic or cynical answer, it could be a bit of both, appears to be to introduce a new IP / hedging bets in case of adaptation. But what's the answer given by the creators and what's the narrative answer given? Let's see. They could all combine too, it can be a Franken thing. Tom King has spoken a lot about this run developing the character, feelings on Wonder Woman, so there are many quotes and I'm going to get to sprinkle them in. Firstly, he had this to say about the Wonder Woman run. He says that this isn't going to be a deconstruction, also acknowledging that that is something that he tends towards. He stated, "It's not a deconstruction. I'm not tearing her apart and seeing how sad I can make her." Confirmation that that is what's happening in some other cases. Even in a way I did to Batman, the point of this book is to show you how awesome Wonder Woman is. It is to show you a kick warrior. It is to show you someone who fights for peace. It's to show you someone who is a rebel against the system. So that's all of it. This is to put the highlight on a character who doesn't need to be fixed. So that's the intention for the book. But he also stated something else about Wonder Woman, about making her worthy. Sometimes Wonder Woman can fall out of the Trinity. I think people go to Batman and Superman first. She deserves to stand up there. Because I remember my daughter dressing up as Wonder Woman for 3 years in a row and what it meant for her to ask for a lasso. My wife ended up buying a rope and painting it. Like, I want her to be worthy of sort of that, of what my daughter sees in her. And that's my goal. Do you agree with the sentiment that she's not already worthy of that, which is what that quote appears to be implying? Or do you not feel that that's what it's implying at all? Tell me what you think. How do you interpret it? Phrasing. As for Trinity herself, he claims he was largely inspired by an idea that Mitch Gerard had earlier, including the Supersons babysitting one of Barda's kids, and also the dynamic of witnessing his 3 children at play, and how that could relate to Damian and John as brothers to a younger sister. As to how it pertains to Trinity, he stated that they wanted someone who could reflect the greatness of Wonder Woman and still show a next possible step for the ideals embodied in that very impactful and very unique hero. And maybe more important than all of that is that John and Damian are so great together. Pete Tomasi and Patrick Gleason gave us endless gold with Supersons. Preach. For For Trinity, we want someone who could play in that same sandbox, who could add to that chemistry. The thing is, this quote makes it sound like Trinity is more an accent to the Supersons. As for issue 800, the main story took the form of an anthology with a wraparound of Diana wafting through dreams of people close to her and detailing her impact on them or their relationship. It was called Whatever Happened to the Warrior of Truth Part 2. The title playing off the classic Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow and also Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader. Though structurally it's closer to the latter, but it doesn't achieve the same depth of either. Regardless, we are not here for that. We are here for the backup story entitled Trinity. Our story opens with John Kent Superman and Damian wearing his Batman of Bethlehem bat costume, the one with the really intense collar. They're waiting for Trinity so that they can do something. And as they wait, they exchange important grounding dialogue so that the reader is aware who they are, that they are Jonathan and Damian. It is slightly clunky, but not as clunky as it could have been. She's late. That's what she does. It's part of her charm. The collar is so intense. It just makes me think he's sitting there watching his dad do stuff as a kid thinking, costume needs more collar, needs more trench coat. Since we were kids, you always got me in trouble. I'm the son of Batman, heir to the demon. I was never a kid. So they're there, lightly bantering, just waiting. And then Trinity arrives, and that still shot that has been making the rounds in promotion because you get that full look at her and at her costume. But it was dialogueless. Now we get to see the dialogue, what she's saying. Seriously? Why is it so hard to get you boys to do anything right? So to recap, they're there waiting for her to do something for her. She's late, shows up and sasses them for waiting for her for the thing that she needs to tell them what it is. That must be the charm that John mentioned. Now, a lot of her dialogue is probably meant to come off as joshing or ribbing or banter, but the way it comes across doesn't always land or has the potential to miss. You're late. How? I didn't see you. I'm late because I was fighting 12 deities and that takes a little time. Please forgive me, I regret it so. And you didn't see me because I'm, I don't know, like, better than you at all the things? Is this news? That I don't regret, but you probably do. So I'm sorry about you doing the regretting, if that helps. If it doesn't, that's not on me. Cora vibes. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you can't handle my awesomeness. She's just better at you at like all the things. The thing with an intro like this is that it's meant to set up a few things. One, that Trinity and Du Bois have a history. The thing is, we the reader do not have that history, nor time of recording do we have the potential to since this is her first appearance. So what we have is a new character showing up and proclaiming that she's just the best and everybody needs to deal with it. They're just slow in a number of ways. Just wow. So how this lands is going to vary because for some, if they do have a sibling dynamic like this, it may resonate, or she may just come across as incredibly grating. Time for recording characters coming out the gate proclaiming themselves as the best or being instantly validated has become a bit of a meme in how often it happens. It doesn't happen for every character, but it's become a point where they've started to pile up on top of each other over the recent years. And as such, some would view an entrance like this as the definition of what some online deem girl boss. Girl bossification, gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss. There is a male equivalent. One day I'll get to use it. This feeling may be reinforced based on how she continues to treat them. The banter is very much one way. They don't sass her back. As for her design, we'll talk about that at the end. Put a pin in it. The boys banter with each other about how they spoiled her, and their dynamic is pretty on point for an adult Supersons. So that part's pretty fun to witness, but Lizzie is having none of it. That's her nickname. Boys, if you'd like to stay behind and be all craven, that's perfectly fine. Don't be ashamed or anything. Sadly, I don't have time right now to dig a hole in the sand for you to stick your heads in, so you'll have to do that part on your own. But rest assured, I have full confidence in your ability to get it done. You can see that it is meant to be teasing, but again, it all comes down to the execution, the fact that it is coming out of the gate very strong for the character's first few panels. Although some may like that, they may feel that she's take charge, has an attitude, isn't gonna let the boys put her down. I just died a little inside. So her full name, as we'll see later, is Elizabeth Marston Prince. The first two names referencing two of Wonder Woman's creators, William Moulton Marston and his wife Elizabeth. H.G. Peter and Olivia Byrne are left out, but if they included them too, she'd have a very long name. Just to note that the name is a nod to Wonder Woman's history. There are a few nods to various things throughout this, some references that are gonna play into it. One of the others can be found in how Trinity and how some of the more Amazonian or characters related to her story speak. Trinity herself has this mix of a more formal Shakespearean-esque and cadence language meshed up with colloquialisms, which can come across as a bit awkward, but that may be intentional to show her otherness, that she's different than them, she's had a different upbringing. There are also going to be moments of paraphrase Shakespeare going through this. Various characters are going to do it. As the story moves on, it's going to enter into that theme of tragedy and kind of have a play-like energy to it. And so for some, that's really going to elevate the work and make it feel like it has a lot more depth, but for others, it may be surface trimmings and trappings that remains to be seen how it's going to impact and play out in the whole narrative. As As for why they are there, they need to go to what the story jokingly calls the Magic Cave of Death, which is an excuse for Lizzie to tease John and Damien about not learning Greek. She could have told them the Greek name and said it roughly translates to Cave of Death, and they could still have joked about it and she didn't have to belittle them, but that's not the route we got. To get through the cave, they need to do 3 trials. That's why all 3 of them need to be there, and she divvies it up as follows. You both know what? You boys are way too slow in a few ways. Let's just say Superman pain, Batman skill, me honor. Cool? John actually acknowledges that she's being a mite rude and that they're there to help her as a favor because they care about her. He starts to talk about it, and I assume he's gonna say maybe be nice, tone it down, but we never get to see because she interrupts him with, the 3 of us, we're family. From the beginning and all the way to the end. With family, there are no favors. Only obligations. Had a very you can't do anything nice for family, there's only obligation. Birthdays for Trinity must be rough. There are no gifts, only tributes. That's gonna come across very differently based on the tone that you read it in. And that's gonna heavily depend upon personal life experiences and personal biases and the like. To me, it didn't come across as making her very likable. So, pain, the first trial. John has to put his hand on a statue to open the next stage, but it will cause him immense pain reaching his hand into it. It's very much the pain box scene from Dune, only minus the Gom Jabbar or meaningful symbolism about the pain of creation and childbirth. In this scene though, we get the one and only panel in this story that showcases that Trinity actively cares about these boys, and it's a good panel. She looks very concerned. She'll talk about how she cares about them later, but her expression won't match that. Here you really see it in the art. This is a great panel because you could remove the dialogue from this scene and you would still be able to follow what's going on and catch the emotional tone. It gives that scene a little bit of extra connective oomph, which is good because we still don't fully know why they're there or what they're trying to achieve. The skill section amounts to Damien fighting an Amazon and getting to say the I'm Batman meme. This leaves Trinity to take on Honor, a spirit who has taken on Diana's form. What a noble farce, but like most jokes told too often, you've grown old and tired, kind of like Wonder Woman come to think of it. But alas, you are not Wonder Woman. And she defeats the spirit with her black lasso. Trinity is there to see a prisoner for reasons. That's the mystery. These things are meant to hook us in. We do not know you. I am Elizabeth Marston Prince, champion of the Amazons, leader of the Justice League, daughter of Diana, and the first holder of the 3 lassos of fate. Leader of the Justice League? So then did they have to come out of familial obligation or out of league obligation? That raises questions about the obligations, since there is no family, only obligation. Now that declaration was a good way to get her to say her whole name and title. It's noted and appreciated. This prisoner here is the king, and Trinity needs to talk to him about something. I've been searching high and low for a story, and I heard you had a good one to tell. We see, but in truth, we have many stories. Which one made this particular journey worth its sacrifices? Oh well, only the bestest one. Mine. She just unironically used the word bestest. Truly, of all the timelines, this is one of them. Now this is interesting when you couple it with some of the other phrasing that she's utilized throughout this story. Bestest, or bestest ever, is oft used to mock the idea of that kind of girl boss character. It's one of those archetypal phrases that a stereotypical character like that would say. Or it doesn't even necessarily need to be said, but it can be a sentiment around such a character. The new rendition of something like Yas Queen or Slay. So it's interesting to see it said here. There are questions as to why that's occurring. Is there a knowledge of the idea that this was perhaps how the character could be perceived? Is this an attempt to play with that, to kind of jokingly reference it, to try and recontextualize it, own it, reclaim it, an attempt to maybe poke the bear and show the see, this is the reaction that I said people would have? Or is it perhaps more oblivious, something that's meant to make the character feel hip, relatable, and youthful? Is this attitude meant to convey strength and a kind of toughness? Let me know what you think down below, because there are many ways this could be taken, and whatever the intent, that may not be how it lands for people, which is not to say that the intent doesn't matter. It just means that that may not be how it resonates. Any man who holds the throne and bears the crown, Shakespeare paraphrasing, must understand, no matter how we might resist, we are each of us foretold. Super duper, but I've got one brother stuck in a loop of infinite pain, another in an eternal unwinnable fight. I would have put battle there, that's just me. So if you maybe get on with it already, it would mean just a ton to me. Okay, thanks. That last part wasn't there, but it felt appropriate. Didn't it feel like that could have been attached onto the sentence with very little effort? That may just be the tone I'm reading it in, but I'm reading in that tone because that's how it's coming across to me as I'm reading it. Of course, pardon the ramblings of an old king. Let us then proceed with haste to the myth that killed America and birthed a new wonder. This is the story of how she defeated me. So this entire little section and the whole story in general is meant to do a few things. It's of course meant to introduce Trinity, give a little sample of her personality and her relationship to some of the other characters, namely in this case the Supersons. And it does showcase that the two of them are clearly fond of her and will go above and beyond for her. The other hook is meant to be the mystery. What is this story? And in terms of a hook, it's middling. There is that curiosity factor. I wonder how this came to to be? How did we get to this kind of timeline? But there aren't many seeds as to what this could be or why the reader should care in this little short. Who this king is or who Trinity's father is, which is one they're teasing out a bit in some of the promotion. Not all of it, but they use some of it to hype Wonder Woman #1. Is it Clark? Is it Bruce? Is it Steve? It's been all three at different points. I mean, all three at different times. As it stands for Trinity though, it's not the strongest intro for a character. If one is comparing it to the last big Wonder Woman character reveal, I would argue it's weaker than Yara's, because there was an intrigue of playing with an entirely different mythology there. As for Lizzie and this story, the direction that it's going to go in is a bit more vague. So what you're left to ride on is her presentation and interactions in this story. And she doesn't come across the most likable. She's not necessarily nice to the Supersons, and it's their dynamic most readers are really more familiar with, or just with them as characters. So to have her come in and insult and belittle them may not read as fun and jovial banter for all. Though for some, that sibling dynamic the king was aiming for may land. Though I have to ask you, had I not read those quotes that was what it was going for, would you have interpreted it that way? What do you think? Because now you know. The way she speaks is also interesting, that mix of theater-esque with the hip everyday. It could read as endearing or it could be jarring. Trinity be like, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Your drip is the finest. I could not resist your riz. Truly, thou art not cringe, but thou art craven. For some, the dialogue as it's handled, the story is going to work. For others, less so. And in general, the dialogue with likes of the king has the potential to hit as either grand and otherworldly, something epic, or potentially as pretentious and try-hard, or could be something in between. I'm sure you'll tell me how you feel. I want you to. As for the look, I have quotes from Sampere. Quotes for days. Some fans feel that this look is a bit reminiscent of Artemis, but this is what they were going for. He stated, my idea was to make a balance between some classic Wonder Woman details, like the stars or the bracelets, mixed with a more modern look. I pitched the possible design for Diana when we started the run with her having long pants that finally we didn't use, so I thought it was a nice opportunity to give Trinity those pants. I also wanted to give her a more superhero look and less warrior base, so I reduced to minimum the armor parts. I also have how the name came about for people who are wondering about that. It came from podcaster Daryl Taylor. King stated, I love having quotes. Just makes it so much more interesting. You get to see all the different perspectives. Daryl is a super comic fan, and I've been bouncing ideas off him for a decade to try and see what works and what doesn't. I had gone through 50 very bad names when he said Trinity, and it just fit perfectly. What were the other names? I want to hear the bad names. Back to the quote. She'd have 3 lassos. She would complete what John and Jamie had started. She wasn't another Wonder Woman. She was something new. And also, it was just cool. It's nice to have nerdy friends. It is nice to have nerdy friends. We'll have to see if she's not just another Wonder Woman and something special. DC seems to have a hard time with making Wonder Woman accent characters land, so we'll have to wait and see. Do you think the name fits? Thematically, it makes sense. There are new DC Trinity, the 3 lassos, but I can't help thinking about this.
Dodge this.
Or this. Shout out to people who remember they call me Trinity. Trinity is still my name, and I guess we'll throw in Sons of Trinity. Why not? This is just an intro, so it remains to be seen how the character will grow, and whether she'll grow on you, or if you already love her. I don't know why I say it like that. It's because the line best as ever is in that, it's making me have a cadence. But just because this is just her first appearance doesn't mean we can't talk about our first impressions. What do you think? Are you feeling Trinity? Is she the bestest ever? Do you wish other Wonder Woman characters were getting more play? Or do you feel there's room for everybody? I want to hear all of your answers, and we of course have more videos coming soon. Thanks so much for taking some time today to spend it discussing comics with me, getting a little sassy. I don't know what happened today. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.